Today on the show, we have one of my buddies and colleagues, sports dietitian Joel Totoro. And I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell you everything that he has done. He comes with a host of different experiences. And then we are going to talk today about one of the hottest topics I think that exists across middle school and high school sports, which is, should teen athletes take creatine? And I'm super excited for us to dial in on this and talk on this topic. But Joel, first, tell us a little bit about yourself, all of your experiences, and then we'll rock and roll.
Yeah, so I'm over 20 years in the sports dietetic space. Started initially in clinical ICU trauma and kind of was able to transition as Amy did as sports nutrition grew and we started to get some science behind it. So spent 15 years in football at the pro level with the New England Patriots and then at University of Michigan. And kind of as that was winding down, uh, kind of started to understand over my time the potential importance of supplementation in elite athletes and high performers. And it was kind of an industry that I didn't love. And now that I'm in it, I've learned a little bit more about how much more I don't love it. Right. So, it's a largely, I mean, there's some regulations there, but we'll talk about it a little bit later. But a little almost 10 years ago, I came over to Thorne, who was a 40-year supplement and health technology company that had largely been available only to healthcare practitioners. So Amy and I could have access as a dietitian, but it wasn't generally available to the public. So enough of us in the performance space were like, hey, we need this level of quality. Can you certify for sport, third-party tests, so our athletes can know this level of safety? So that's what I've been doing for the last 9 years, kind of working with everything from individual athletes to, partnerships at the, team and organizational level, and just kind of just educating about supplementation, how it fits in, when to do it, how to do it, these kind of things. And
Yes.
it's been a really exciting ride. And I'm still coaching, I'm still educating, but kind of in a different, I'm not on the sidelines every day.
So, one thing Joel did not tell you is that he was the first ever full-time sports dietitian in the NFL. So, he is the one who really paved the way out there. He's got extensive experience in the NFL. We even worked with the same strength coach at different teams for a period of time. So, we all have done a lot of the same things together. But super excited to have you. He brings a wealth of information, especially from working at Thorne and just being kind of in that supplement industry and what it's like and what we don't like about it and all the different aspects of it. So, Joel, when we start talking about creatine for youth, teen, adolescent athletes, this is something I've been asked about my entire career. I think we know way more about it now than what we did before. But for all the parents out there, people that may not totally know, let's just level the playing field. Let's talk about what creatine is, what it does in the body, and really what athletes are using it for. So we're gonna have a little more of a conversation on this, but I want you to kind of tell me your input there.
Yeah, so creatine is the most widely researched supplement out there. They've been looking at it since the 90s, right? So many peer-reviewed articles on it. And really what it comes down to is creatine is a kind of an amino acid. It's made of three amino acids in our body. So it's something our body creates anyway, right? In small amounts, but essentially what it does is it provides fuel for the ATP system, which is the energy system our entire body works on. Whether you're trying to be an athlete, whether you're trying to use your brain, you're just trying to fuel survival for the day, right? There's all energy based, right?
Mhm.
So creatine fuels the energy system. That's essentially what it does, right? So obviously,
Right.
if we look at it in the sports world, okay, when I'm trying to do exercise, expend large amounts of energy, the more efficient I am at that, this is where the benefits can be. But in reality, and this is where a lot of the research has kind of diverged from just performance, is what is asking my body to do more than baseline?
Right.
That needs energy. Is this the right solution to fund that energy? Right now, a majority and dietitians will all tell you, food, major source of energy, right? So that's
Right.
where we're going to start all
Right.
the time, right? But we're going to talk through some of these situations where is a supplement exactly that, to supplement a good diet, right? Are there times when I
Mhm.
need more, whether it's for convenience, for the amount of food, the types
Yeah.
of food I'm eating, is a supplement an answer, right? So there's a huge checklist to go through. before you're
Right.
like, okay, I'm even going to consider supplementations, especially at the kind of teen and adolescent age.
Well, and I think it's interesting because we know that creatine is found in food, specifically in meats and fish and things like that. But I think lots of people actually think it's only found in supplement form. And so there's something to, I think be said for parents and coaches out there that creatine is a naturally occurring molecule in our bodies that we have. And then you get it in food, but oftentimes most people may not be getting enough, especially when we're talking about the elite exerciser level. Fair to
Yeah, and I
say.
kind of just yeah to simplify, and this is not a straight parallel, but you can get all your hydration from foods, right? From fruits and
Mhm.
vegetables. There's times when you are sweating more, exercising more,
Right,
you can you're gonna need more than just from foods, right? So
right,
was it is if it is just extra water, extra, and I'm not saying by all means try and get all your hydration needs
right.
from foods, but understand just as a kind of an example, like there are certain times when you're like, okay, my diet is not giving me what I need for this time when I have these high energy needs, or when I'm not drinking enough for my hydration needs. Maybe
Mhm.
that's when I add a sport drink, add a, so creatine I see kind of the same way again because it
Yeah,
is naturally occurring in foods. And that's, and I may be jumping the gun here, but if you're gonna read anything that's a scaring, like, oh, creatine's bad for you, they're gonna call it a steroid. It's not. It's naturally occurring
yes,
thing in your body that sometimes you have needs for, and rarely does the diet match it in high demands
yeah,
of energy. Steroids are there to help you cheat and do things your body's not
right,
supposed to do above and
right,
beyond what it is its natural set point. So I need that's the first thing I always debunk. It's not a steroid. It's a naturally occurring amino acid. It's things that
right.
are in our food. It's our
Yeah.
body makes every day. So you're adding more of something you already have, not adding something that shouldn't be there.
Well, and you make an interesting point, and this is the point that I make with a variety of different foods and beverages, like you just said, and that when you put a greater demand on the body, you are putting a greater demand on hydration intake, food intake, whatever it is. So if you're sweating more, you need more fluid and electrolytes to replace that. If you are, moving more, burning more energy throughout the day, you need more carbohydrates to replace that. Similarly, if you're doing lots of strength training and you're using those high intensity energy systems or looking to gain muscle, you're putting a different demand on the body, which could lead to the supplementation, obviously, of creatine outside of just food. Now, you mentioned this a minute ago. And of course, as sports dietitians, we know that creatine is the most researched. It's the most researched. We know it's safe. We know it works. And so when we talk about it, let's talk about it from the adult perspective before we take it to the teen perspective. Well researched, we would say that it probably I would say the two main things it really, really does that most people think of it as are increasing strength and increasing size. So increasing mass. Talk to me a little bit, just kind of like generally about the research that we have on creatine supplementation in adults. You and I were talking before we started. Do you load? Do you not? And then we'll take it to the teen athlete side of things.
Yeah, so creatine, a majority of the early research was around performance, right? And muscle
Hmm.
health. And the numbers aren't here, but just to simplify it, say you have 10 units of creatine that your muscle can store, right? If you're growing the size of the muscle, your tank grows, so your need
Right.
grows, right? If you're growing at all outside of intentional muscle growth, lots of calorie, a lot of energy demands there, right? So
Hmm.
those are all things you need to think about. Like, am I fueling my body, allowing it to be as optimal as it can be? So
Right.
a lot of times where we look at it in exercises, you're going to be training, right? That's going to use energy. If I go into that, allowing my body to be more efficient and create more energy, I can do more work. So I do
Right.
more work. Of course, then I have to come in with all the other nutrients, get the benefits from all that work because you can
Hmm.
either kind of grow that muscle or you can be sore, right? So
Right.
you could do
Right.
the work, not get the benefits, right? So it's kind of just again, it's hard to take creatine on its own, right? Like talk about it on its own when we're talking about performance because everything else has to happen. But at the
Right.
end of the day, what it does is allow your muscles to do more work, which
Yes.
when we're training, that's do more damage, recover more damage, grow more muscle. When we're
Right.
actually performing, it's, I say like, when I was young, they're like, oh, just gut it out in the fourth quarter. yeah, you don't have to. Let's just fuel that, right? Like you don't have
Right.
to like
Right.
appreciate the effort, but if we are fueled beforehand, but the second part is the part a lot of people miss, and a lot of people who are taking creatine as, hey, I just want to get better. Cool, let's let you do more work, but you got to do all the rest of it to get
Right.
the benefit from that work. So that's kind of how I explain creatine, and then kind of as we look at humans, once we kind of thought about it and there was time to do the research and control for them,
Hmm.
then we start looking at, okay, well, the brain uses a ton of energy. Does creatine help with that, right?
Right.
Bone health and cognition and, kind of really everything. Our gut lining is needs energy to
Hmm.
repair. Like all these things that use energy. Am I getting enough in my food to meet my total body energy needs for the day?
Right.
Because we think about, I'm looking at my training, you know, am I fueling my training, forgetting I'm growing, I'm healing, I'm recovering, I'm
Right.
sick, I'm stressed. Those all take energy. So
Right.
am I giving my body the total energy needs? And then if not, am I supplementing to support everything I'm asking of my body?
Yep, love that. And so we know that obviously at the adult level, it works, it's safe. Obviously, we'll talk about safety in a minute. But let's look at some of the research as it relates to youth and teen athletes. You and I have both kind of looked at it and it exists, but it's a little slim in what we've got going, which oftentimes makes people leery of, making the recommendation. Should a teen athlete take creatine? And do we have enough research to say that that's safe? So talk to me a little bit about the
Yeah.
research that's out there. You and I have kind of conversed on this, and then what that leads to, or what it lends to in regards to a recommendation, or a like, oh, hey, yeah, we think that could be fine for younger athletes.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So nutrition research, specifically in teens and adolescents, it is tough to look at for a number of reasons.
Yep.
One, it's just, does this make sense? Is it ethical to be doing in
Yeah.
in growing children? But two, it's accounting for different stages of puberty, different stages of, because within a age group, you know,
Yep. We
12
talked
to
about
12
this
to
like a
16, like, come on. There's no two people, like, there's no such thing as a similar cohort, right? They're all
right,
over the map, right? But then
right.
it is, are we accounting for the needs of growth, of training, of all that stuff? So
Mhm.
it's relatively lean on the, does creatine impact adolescent performance? Straight up,
Right.
one for one. This is, we
End
took
of
this,
story.
this is
Yeah.
what we measured. Now, it has been researched pretty significantly in medical situations, like whether
Right.
it's TBIs, whether it's dystrophy,
TBIs,
some energy. Yeah,
definition, concussion.
yeah. Sorry. Yeah,
Okay, concussion.
yeah,
We're speaking.
yeah,
Okay, keep going. Yes, and
yeah.
other like issues. Yeah, exactly. Other
Yeah.
health issues.
So, and that's been like as young as infants, right? Now,
Right.
those are
Right.
in medical situations, and so what there's kind of a, I always say, like, what do we think? What do we know? What can we
Yeah.
prove? We're kind of in this, okay,
Mhm.
we know it helps these specific situations. We know those have been monitored under
Right.
pretty strict medical situations, right? Like barriers, which would have identified issues if there were
Right.
issues, right?
Right.
And then there's, we know it helps performance in adults. That's kind of proven,
Mhm.
right? So it's like very sick, very elite, both proven to be okay. There's some benefit
Yeah.
here, right? With very little to no demonstrated side effects. And I believe it was, I don't know, somewhere after 2020, it
Mhm.
has been named generally guarded as safe, which is
Yeah.
an FDA kind of safeguard around what could be used as ingredients in
Right.
food. So that's just another kind of peace of mind for people
Mhm.
considering, is this something that makes sense for me? So it's one of those, like, yes, I'm fairly confident if we do the studies in athletes,
Yeah.
in adolescents specifically. The older you are, I would say the closer to the adult body, the less concern we have. Like you're,
Right.
as far as research and science, like you're, once you're kind of finished growing and you're 16 and 200 pounds, that's I've got a lot less concerns, right? It's just a
Right.
matter of, so there's kind of two things I always answer this is it safe in teens? Probably. Is it my first tool in my toolbox? Probably not, right? There's
Right.
so many other things that we need to account for. Like,
Mhm.
so few people even get the calories they need to grow and then
Right.
to train on top of that. So it's so many times and I've been guilty of it too, like doing this, all right, this is what I do off season, blah, blah, blah. I was like, wait, you're still growing. That's a whole bunch more energy and calories and nutrients I need to account for. So I think a lot of times the idea to just create things a quick fix and I want to get huge, that's not what it does.
Yeah.
Right. It allows you to do more work, allows you to put the work in, which is great. We want you to be doing that, right? But it doesn't, if you're not doing everything else, creatine alone isn't going to creatine without a training program isn't going to do anything.
Right.
Creatine
It's
without a recovery program, not going to do too much, right?
right.
So as far as muscle health is concerned. So
Yeah, I love
yeah.
that. And like you've said it a few times, but generally regarded as safe. And the thought is that even though most of the research is not done on exercise performance in young athletes, it tends to be, there's a few of them done and they're all done in soccer and swimming. I have no idea why soccer and swimming, but soccer and swimming is where they see a little bit of, the research. But as you mentioned, because creatine is used as a supplement in a variety of health conditions and it has proven itself to be safe, technically it should extrapolate to safety in regards to an athlete taking it for performance because we know of the safety of it in the adult population. To your point, though, one of my biggest challenges working with high school athletes for like 18 plus years is that oftentimes they really just don't even have a diet to support what they're needing. And it's hard to measure at that growth and development age how much nutrition they actually need. But, the athlete that tells me, I want to take creatine, and I'm like, well, let's look at your day. What do you eat for breakfast? They're like, well, I don't eat breakfast. And I'm like, all right, we got bigger fish to fry here than taking creatine. So I do think that you made an excellent point in that. Can creatine benefit performance? Yes, but it's got to be on top of a solid diet, solid hydration plan, solid training plan, solid recovery plan. And that's where oftentimes I like to say many athletes take creatine as a replacement instead of a supplement to
Right.
a good diet and to a new training plan because like you said, it's not just the end all be all, the thing that's going to fix everything. You've got to do the other things as well to be able to see the results that you're really wanting to see.
Yeah. And I mean, I always talk about it when I'm talking with, teens and adolescents. If we're talking about creatine, we have to be talking carbohydrate, hydration, and protein too.
Yep.
Like it's a package deal. Like
Yep.
there it needs to be have a solution for all of those. So I think that's kind of how I look at it. Like,
Yeah.
but on the flip side, we also see what athletes are taking and what all these supplements and energy drinks and all these things. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
let's fuel the energy. If you're going to be taking let's take the one that's most, or if you've
Right.
got,
Researched.
$2 to spend
Oh,
per day on a supplement, creatine's probably going to go a little bit further for you than just max dose caffeine or some
right.
crazy proprietary blend of nothing,
Right.
right? So
Totally.
it's I say it's kind of research informed. It's not quite research backed, the
Yeah.
use in
I like
teens, but
it.
it's informed kind of by all the kind of decades of research around it.
And I think it's important to note that what we're saying about teen athletes, like you've got to have the carbs, the protein, the hydration, the recovery. You and I have worked both at teen athletes and college athletes and professional athletes. And we're preaching that same message at all of those levels. So I think that that's important to note that, we're saying those same things, creatine as a supplement, not a replacement at all levels. I find that at the high school level, when you have growth and development and training and recovery and school and all the different things, just the demand for calories is so high and trying to help those kids get enough nutrition and then say, okay, can creatine be a supplement to help you meet your goals or help you further enhance athletic performance on top of what you're already doing from a dietary standpoint. Now, when we start talking about supplementing, that leads us to the generalized, just hot topic word of supplements, which we know very well. You know more than probably most in this area. And so we're talking about good diet, we're talking about supplementing, but let's talk about what makes a supplement safe. Obviously, a lot of people believe that if they buy it at the store, it's safe. If they can order it online, it's safe. And so I'd love for us to dial in on helping parents, coaches, and young athletes understand that if they're going to take creatine and or any other supplement on the market, what they need to be looking for, what third-party testing is, and why it's so important.
Yeah, so I think when we kind of started out, the supplement industry was smaller, and it was
Small,
it was
Joel,
most
so
likely
small. like this
Yeah, so
big.
small. There was
Well, it
like
was
five
small, but
companies.
there were like nothing, there was like nothing third party tested.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
for
nothing. There
sure.
was like six supplements. Like
Yeah. But back then it was more, the concern was largely, do they actually work, right? The
right.
idea of a tainted supplement, you kind of had to go out of your way to be kind of cheating to find
Yeah.
some of the things that are in. But as our food supply and our manufacturing, as it grew, and there were more and more people trying to cut corners, the
Hmm.
chance of having a tainted, it's, we've had positive drug tests at the, Olympic and professional level from electrolytes, from, whey protein, from things that I
Hmm.
normally 20 years ago would have been like, yeah, you're probably okay,
Yeah.
right? Like, but now, so more than ever, you have to be super diligent. So, fortunately, over the last 20 years, they have been programs for third-party testing, which means Thorne is a supplement manufacturer. We take pride in the supplements we make, but you don't have to take my word for it, right? Because there's no difference
Right.
between me telling you I have a clean product and your neighbor down the street that's,
Right.
making it in their garage, right? Um, it's a little
No,
hyperbole there,
no,
but
that's what
yeah,
I've always told like 16-year-old boys. I'm like, if all of you got together and could conjure up enough money to make a supplement, you too could make it and actually get it into the market. And that's what's really scary about
yeah,
it. So I've used the garage example myself. It's not
yeah.
just you.
But yeah, so this is third party testing. So you in at the pro level, there's different levels to it. There's different certifications, but at the pro level, you have to make sure every batch of every product that you take is banned substance free because your livelihood, your paycheck, your
Yep.
eligibility, all tied to that, right? So there's kind of like a couple steps to it. So one, you just have to make sure your facility is certified, which means you're at least doing what you're supposed to, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's sad we have to check for that. But is it
Well, and
even in a
let's let,
place?
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, no, because a lot of, especially when you start getting in international markets,
Yep.
what we would assume is a factory standards of cleanliness and potentially tainting, but we've all seen the photos from overseas of kind of undercover
Yeah.
audits, and there's a motorbike hanging in this corner. There's just vats of stuff here. It's a dirt floor, like
Yeah.
not at all what we would like. I'm assuming like in my head, if I'm not thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, it's probably made like next door to where they make pharmaceuticals, right? Not true at
Yeah.
all, but
Not
that's like
true.
where
Yeah.
our brains all go, right? So one, it's just, is it actually like a facility that understands manufacturing, understands
Right.
safety, the very minimum, right?
And a lot
And
of
then
that, what I
that's
was going to say real quick was it also means it understands cleanliness because
mhm,
part of the problems are supplements are laced with things that
mhm,
potentially were created in that lab before that
mhm,
product was. And so, to your point, is it safe? It's also like, did they do their due diligence with cleaning so that there's not
for
residues
sure.
of whatever it is on their manufacturing, equipment or whatnot?
Yep. Yeah. So then the next step is this higher level of certified for sport, or so NSF does certified for sport. Informed Choice does informed sport, similar, where
Hmm.
every batch of that product is tested because some of the other testing you just submit once a year, or they pick a product off the shelf. They kind of spot check,
Right.
which is probably good for 98% of us. But
Yeah.
when you are tied to that, because you never know, and
Hmm.
it's not always like we said, it's not always an intentional doping
Right.
of a product. It's something that's legal for sale in America, but not legal for competition. And if they make that product, they don't clean it very well. Trace amounts in
Hmm.
your protein powder could
Yeah.
be enough for you to trigger, right? So this third party testing at the highest level, they test every batch for over 200 banned substances. So combined
Hmm.
from the Olympics and the pro sports, so those combined lists to make sure those aren't in it. But then it goes kind of a step further, and this is where I think like non-drug tested athletes, moms, parents, anyone should kind of be expecting this from their supplements. Is it looks at, is everything on the label there in the amount that it
Right.
says it is, which
Right.
a lot of times you're buying filler and cornstarch, right? And then
Hmm.
is there everything that's on the label, is it in there and nothing else, right? Is there anything that's
Right.
not on the label?
Right.
And then it goes further, it looks at pesticides and heavy metal, which is where a lot of the contamination comes in. And it's something I didn't
Yeah.
think about until I got in there. But, even bringing into our facility, nothing can come in on wood pallets because there could be bugs or pesticides on those, right?
Right.
If you've got cotton on top of your supplement. Again, something I would have never, and I started my career in pharmacy. I've pulled thousands of those out. Never once thought about the cleanliness of cotton, right?
Hmm.
So it's all these things, and you're like, oh, okay. If somebody else is thinking about this, I feel a lot better about kind of the global product as a whole. And then the other thing, and I always tell people, if you're reading your supplement and it's claiming things and you're reading it in like monster truck voice, like white hot heat and blazing intensity are not clinical
Uh,
terms, right?
no, not at all.
NSF for sport guarantees if you say anything on your like supports energy metabolism, you
Right,
have to have research papers to back that up, right? You can't
right,
just make stuff up and put it on a label, which you
right.
can to get it to the market. And then it takes a while for the Federal Trade Commission or the FDA to be like, that's not
Mhm.
something you can say. But in the meantime,
Right,
you're selling it, right? So
right, exactly.
all just safeguards against if you're going to take
Yeah,
a supplement to understand, like, let's make sure. And honestly, like, especially, when you're younger, I want to make sure you're getting your money's worth, right? Like, is
yeah,
this product actually working, right? So, yes, I read the
yeah,
research and it said this. Yeah, but that's the form they use that
yeah,
actually gets absorbed, right? So, and
yeah,
that's not true of every supplement on the market. There's a lot of binders and fillers and things that
yeah.
aren't bad for you or not necessarily harmful, but they may interact with the absorption. So yes, you're
Mhm.
ingesting 20 grams of protein. Are you absorbing 20 grams of protein? And
Yeah.
that's a whole different ball game. So
Yeah. So for all the people out there that heard the names he tossed out there, but they're like, what? What was the name of that? So there's two, I would say, major gold standards that we use in sports, specifically sports that get drug tested. NSF certified for sport. And the website is nsfsport.com. We'll drop these in the show notes. So nsfsport.com. They also have an app, NSF Sport, and you can search products by name of the actual brand and by the product. So you can search it both ways. Do not assume that because a brand certifies some of its supplements that it certifies all of its supplements. I've run across that where they're not all certified. So NSF certified for sport. Second one is Informed Choice, which has Informed Sport, which is the second kind of gold standard when it comes to sport. Their website is WeTestYouTrust.com. So it's WeTestYouTrust.com. And they have an app as well. It's Informed Sport, like literally NSF Sport, Informed Sport. And you can download these for free. You can search their products, you can search the brand names, all of the different things. And so what I always tell athletes is if you're going to choose to take a supplement, parents, if you're going to choose to buy a supplement for your athlete, do your due diligence. Like even if you're not getting drug tested, I'm going to give a story example because this was real life. I saw years ago, this kid's probably 30 now, but years ago, I saw a 16-year-old pretty into supplements, was not an athlete, like really liked going to the gym, working out, etc. 16-year-old taking every supplement under the sun. Parents weren't really watching it. He was buying whatever and really did not necessarily want to be on a nutrition plan. He loved his supplements. Fast forward 4 years, he was in college and came back. He's, sent me a message. Can I come back and see you again? And I said, sure. This kid ended up in the hospital with liver failure due to some of the supplements he was taking. He was taking things that had ingredients in them, to your point, Joel, that were not on the label. And this kid went into liver failure. I mean, it's kind of dramatic, but he almost died. And people are like, it sounds so dramatic, but it is. I can see this kid. I mean, this was so long ago, but I can see him. You would have imagined his tone change the second time I saw him after he had this experience. And so, what I like to remind parents and young athletes is, yeah, it can happen to you. Even in the professional world, I would get players that are like, Aim, I've been taking this supplement for 3 years. It's never tested me positive on a drug test. And my argument is to your batch testing. Right. But the batch you're taking right now is not the batch you were taking 3 months ago. And this batch could be different. And so, really doing due diligence to look at the supplements, make sure that they're third party tested, because I've done a lot of work, and I know you have too, at the Taylor Hooten Foundation. They're an anti
mhm.
performance enhancing drug organization. And so, I've seen some of the stuff that they've pulled just in regards to supplements. And like on average, they say that like 20-ish percent, like 18 to 21%, I think it is, or 20-ish percent of supplements sold legally at the local supplement store or online are laced with something that's not on the ingredient list.
Mhm.
Like, that's a fifth. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
fifth of the products that have not, I'm not saying it's something that's going to kill you, but they have some, like some ingredient that is laced into it, meaning accidentally ended up there, that was not on the ingredient list. And so that's important because, like I tell people, I don't care if you go play professional sports or not, as a human, you need to know what you're putting in your body and making sure that you are choosing safe supplements, just like we want people to choose safe foods and all the different things. And foods are so highly regulated, we don't have to stress out as much about it. But just the importance of doing your due diligence to look at what you're taking and be willing to pay for the check mark that says, yeah, we've done our due diligence to prove that what you're taking is safe and, relatively speaking, pretty free of harm.
Yeah, you make some great points, and it always frustrates me. I think it leads to, and you'll hear, oh, well, so and so was taking creatine and they're had liver failure. It wasn't the creatine, it was everything else, right?
Yeah.
So there's kind of two sides of that. So one, obviously, the most important is, yeah, is it reputable? Are you getting, lead? I've had people like it was a natural farmers market electrolytes, but the water they were getting it from was like wildly heavy in heavy metals, right? So they
Yeah.
had heavy metal toxicity,
Wow.
thinking they were doing the right thing, right?
Oh,
So
gosh.
there's
Yeah.
the accidental exposure, or companies just cutting corners. But then if you look at in the industry, so one of the things I like about NSF or Informed Sport is the amount is actually in there, right? Because
Right.
very rarely, even at Thorne with our trusted partners, we'll get ingredients that are totally safe, something we could use, but they're like this batch of, say it's a plant-based product. This batch is a little bit weaker. This crop is a little bit weaker, so it
Mhm.
doesn't meet our to say X amount is in this one scoop, right? So
Ah, yeah.
there's the safety side of it, but then there's, are you getting your money's worth, right? So
Yeah.
and there's not as much regulation outside of, and this is all voluntary. So the companies who voluntarily submit to these third party products, even like I like to say, it means they're doing everything right, probably leading into
Right.
it. So if you are taking creatine from this company and you're like, all right, I just for non-drug tested athletes,
Mhm.
generally I feel better about those companies, even if not
Right.
every one of their products certified.
Right.
They're at
Yeah.
least doing most of the, they're at least
Right.
doing what they're supposed to, and that's not true for every supplement
Right.
company.
Yeah. And to Joel's point, even if you're not getting drug tested, do your due diligence. But if you are getting drug tested, by all means, make sure that supplement is on the list. Like, you
Yeah.
just can't risk it. I've seen so many times. Now, there's athletes that do the wrong thing. I get it. But you'll see athletes that they'll say, "Well, I didn't know I was taking anything wrong or bad." And people are like, "Oh, yeah, right." And I'm like, "Oh, well, no, they may not have really known if something was laced into a product." So I think, where we can, as consumers, can do the best for our bodies, if you're a parent or coach for your athlete, for your kid, is really double checking and not letting them just purchase what the kid down the road, like what he takes. I don't care if he's the best player on the team. Don't just take what he takes. Like, do your due diligence to check. Like, I mean, I've preached this so long to athletes, and I just feel like I can't say it loud enough, because you just never know what might test you positive. And so if you're at least go the safe route, you'll know you can have some really, really, I'd say, pretty good certainty that you're going to be okay. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and one thing I would say, you and I think because it's our life, we forget to remind people, uh, look at your product and if it's a nutrition facts label or supplement facts, because I think supplements, I always think pills, powders, right? It's
Mhm.
beverages, it's
Yep.
bars and cookies and all these things. So if it
Yep.
has a supplement facts label, it means it's been kind of enhanced with some kind of something that we would consider a supplement if it was a standalone. So those are other things you have to worry about. It's not just the
Yep.
pills, powders. It's especially the cans that are out there. Golly, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
It's hard to
Well,
keep up with.
yeah. And to parents out there, I would say, so if it has a nutrition facts label on the back, nutrition facts label means FDA. It's gone through all the FDA things. It has to follow nutrition facts protocols. If it has supplement facts, the protocols are lighter. And it's just, things are, relatively speaking, Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say that things are deemed safe until proven otherwise in the market, typically when it comes to supplements
Yeah, so supplements you can get onto the market easier. Now,
than
eventually down the
cereal.
road, yeah, yeah. Eventually down the road, there are safeguards in place to look at, is this ingredients, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. But you can get there and be selling for a while. Whereas a nutrition facts label, there's some safeguards, some checks and balances
Yeah.
before you go to market. So
Right.
it's a little, that's a whole other podcast. I'm not sure anyone listened to the legal sides of supplementation and regulation, but for those of us who know, it's a very different world between
Yeah.
food and
And
supplements.
okay, so if it is safe and if it, relatively speaking, does no harm, and teen athletes want to take it, what is the when, where, how much, all of the different components. So really kind of dialing in on the specifics of creatine supplementation as it relates to how you do it well, and what kind of diet it should be accompanied with in order to see the best results. Okay, Joel. So let's dial in first things first. Every parent, coach, and athlete is wondering how much creatine should a teen athlete be taking? And we all know about creatine loading. We've heard research like way back in the day, you had to load, then you didn't have to load, and now you can load. So talk to us a little bit about the amount that would be considered safe, effective, and that we can feel good putting our stamp of approval on for teen athletes.
Yeah, the easiest answer is for most people, most weights, it falls in there's calculation you do. It falls into about 3 to 5 grams per day if
Yep.
you're just using it daily, right?
Right.
Uh, so creatine, I think the biggest misconception is it's a consistency over time thing. So we mentioned in the last episode, say you can hold 10 units of creatine in your muscles and your
Mhm.
diet's giving you 6, right? You
Right.
just want to keep topping it off, right? And it's not
Right.
one where, oh my God, I missed my creatine. I'm going to be awful today, right?
Yeah.
So it's more of a consistency over time. So the best protocol, the best advice I have is the one you're going to do. Now there's ways you can do to optimize it, right? To make sure you absorb it the best and whatnot. Or if you have specific goals, and we'll go into all those. But for me, the simple, if you're ending the podcast now, is, kind of one scoop of protein, kind of daily, um, you know, over time. And it's one of those things where some people, I'm only going to remember to do it around my workouts.
Sure.
Cool. All right. So training days, whatever that allows you, but because it is that kind of consistency over time, you're still going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
It's not a catastrophic thing, and it's, it takes quite a while, or like I think a month to kind of drop completely out of depending on your loading. But if you were to completely stop taking creatine to get
Mhm.
back to your kind of what your normal set point from what your body makes and what you eat.
Got it. So 3 to 5 grams safely a day. Talk to me about loading. So concept of loading with about 20 grams of creatine a day for 7 days, then dropping to that
Mhm.
3 to 5 gram. Is it beneficial? Is it necessary? And if an athlete is going to load, how do you do it? Are you taking all 20 grams at the same time? Should it be split? And if so, when should you take it?
Yeah, so to me it's like how fast or how dramatic your change is, right? So if you're about to start training twice a day and you're untrained, right, or you're
Right.
growing, then loading may be something you want to do, right? So it is, kind of 20 to 30 grams, 5 to 7 days. I would highly recommend splitting that dose up, kind of, I'd say probably 2 to 4 hours in between doses. Can do it around fueling or food, whatever that, again, consistency, what you're going to do day to day. And part of that is just, it's just going to be probably not great on your stomach to take it
Yeah.
all at once,
Yeah.
right? So, anytime you take a lot of anything, whether it's sugar or salt or creatine,
Yeah.
your body kind of floods water and it's like, oh, let's dilute this. And
Yeah.
then that water is now in your GI system. You got to deal with it. So, bloating, GI issues, all kinds of things could come with a very high dose at a very short time. And that's
Mhm.
really anything. So just give your gut a better chance to absorb it by splitting it out. And obviously, if you're in distress, you're not going to be training or recovering the way you want to. So for
Right.
me, definitely, if you're going to load, spread it out. So on the flip side, generally, if you're taking 3 to 5 grams a day for a month, you'll get to the same place you would be at the end of that one week of loading.
Hmm.
So it's just a matter of what works for you, what makes
Yeah.
sense, what your training kind of goals or your performance or wellness goals are. So yes, loading works. There's great protocols around it, great research around it. Definitely works. But it also is fine to just kind of add it as you go, and especially for me, for younger adolescents, especially if you're either changing a lot of things or for sure not right close to competition. This is something you want to
Right.
do
Off
leading up to it.
season.
So yeah, so I would say start in the off season if you've got the time and the planning to do just the kind of gradual. Why not? You'll see the way you respond
Yeah.
to it, whatnot. So that's generally a recommendation for most people. But again, if you've got a time sensitive goal or a time sensitive need for more energy, like
Hmm.
we can talk about it later, but like the concussion protocols, it's very
Right.
high dose creatine for,
Right.
and so we know the body can handle it. It's just a matter of, again, are you wasting your money at some point, right?
Yeah.
And then two, do you have a need for it? So it's there's a lot of things to consider, but the answer is both. Either way works
Yeah.
at the end of the month.
Yeah, no, I like that. Well, and a lot of times it's your body can handle it. How well does it tolerate it initially? And I think anything in sports nutrition, for athletes that have never eaten before early morning trainings, I always tell them start with eating 2 bites of the granola bar and then work your way up to it, right? Like, don't just think you're
Yeah.
going to eat a big old bar and a banana. If you've never eaten before a workout and feel amazing, you need to work your way up to it. Same thing with sports drinks or carbohydrate during long bouts of activity. If you just start chugging away tons of carbohydrate, you're going to have a little GI distress. If you gradually train your gut to take it, you're going to feel a little
Yeah.
bit better. I think similar to what you're saying with creatine, if you've never taken it before and you like load the system with it, you could have some initial, they're probably more gastrointestinal
Mm.
disturbances, not necessarily problems, but disturbances. And so working your way into it, which I would argue, like I tell every athlete, you don't just go run a marathon, you run 1 mile, run a
Right.
mile, get that down, and then let your body build up to it. I feel like that would be the way that we're probably going to minimize some of the negative, just gastrointestinal responses or effects that might be with taking creatine. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Okay.
it's the exact same reason why you don't try a new food on game day, right? It's just
Yes.
we're just why introduce a question mark
Why?
when there doesn't need to be, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
Now, you've kind of already debunked this, but I want to make this clear because this is a question I get asked a lot. Do I take creatine pre-workout, post-workout, or does it matter? You've already kind of alluded to it, but I just want to ask this specific question because I get asked that specific question a lot, and
Yeah.
I want to hear your expert answer on it.
So there's thought that when you're exercising, when you're using your muscles, right? If creatine's in your system, blood flow is increased, right? So the chance of a
Mhm.
nutrient to get to your muscles a little bit higher then, right?
Right.
So ideal for sure, yes. Peri-workout, pre, during, post, somewhere
Yeah.
around that area when your body's focused on muscle, right?
Right.
But as we look at the kind of research, again, it's the consistency over time. So for me, a lot of times I'll take it, it'll be with activity, right? Because that's just my
Right.
routine. But there's some people don't like things in their stomach right before they eat. Some people are like, oh, I just do it in the morning. Like
Right.
if I would say consistency or convenience equals compliance. So if it's gonna like trigger your head, like, oh hey, I'm having breakfast, I'm having creatine, or
Yeah.
like lunchtime, I'm having creatine. Like if you're like, all right, this is just what makes sense to me,
Yeah.
you're not losing a significant amount because it is that over time. It's not like I
Mhm.
need 3 grams exactly. If it's, 2.5 today and 5.1 tomorrow,
Right.
like that's
Right.
all you'll get there. And again, once you're kind of topped off, then you're just kind of maintaining. So,
Yep.
for me, it's, yeah, ideally intra workout, but not drastic if you don't take
Okay.
it then.
Good news. Talk to me about hydration with creatine. Is it necessary to have more hydration? Does adequate hydration get the job done? What is your expert opinion there?
Yeah. So creatine kind of brings hydration with it to the muscle. So
Mhm.
if you've heard, some of the things you always used to hear about creatine is, oh, it's weight gain. It's, that was one of the big things. Yeah, but no. So you're just taking water that's in your body and moving it into your muscles, which has, been shown to decrease cramping and injury and all this stuff. There's all studies looking at
Mhm.
creatine in those. It's just a better environment in the muscle. Like
Yeah.
not at all technical, but I generally refer to it as a multivitamin for the muscle, right? It's that one
Mm-hmm.
dose of a multivitamin is not going to do anything. But if you're consistently avoiding
Yeah.
deficiencies, your just body's in a better state. Same thing.
Right.
A hydrated, kind of creatine filled muscle is just in a better place. It's more resilient.
Yeah.
We've got a colleague who it's a example I've been using for 20 years, stolen, but you could take a rare steak, right? It's malleable,
Mm-hmm.
it's got some give to it. You can pound it, you can tenderize it,
Mm-hmm.
bounces right back. Dehydrate that, make it jerky. It's ripping, it's tearing, it's all this stuff, right? So those are just kind of think about the environment of the muscle.
Yeah.
Just
I like
as
it.
an athlete, a hydrated muscle that has fuel in it, gonna go a long way, right? But so like if you're loading, just know that that shift is going to go, and it's usually a kilogram, so 2 to 3 pounds generally is what people will see
Mm-hmm.
from water going into the muscle. But that does mean there's not that same amount of fluid in other parts of the body where it traditionally had been. So if you are
Mm-hmm.
loading, yeah, just kind of make an effort to kind of one, what we've
Drink
talked about.
enough,
Yeah,
please.
most people
Yes.
aren't even drinking enough. We're kind of in a
Right.
chronically dehydrated
Dehydrated state, especially
country.
athletes,
Um,
especially athletes.
but yeah, so just pay attention to your normal hydration.
Yeah.
We always look at, things like urine color, or making sure if it's a 2 a day and you end the practice 8 pounds lighter, let's make sure you're back to 8 pounds before the next practice, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be immediate. So same thing, just have an idea of making sure kind of normal hydration. But yeah, so that was some of the issues we would see back in the day when people would talk about like cramping or this, that, the other thing.
Yeah.
It would be when they're doing those massive doses all at once, and water is just all not all your water, but more
Right.
water than is needed is in your body, but it's in your intestines where it's not being used for other things,
Right.
right? So a lot of the early concerns in the 90s about creatine were not from the creatine, it was from the way we were idiots about using it, right? So that's
Right.
why if you are loading, spacing it out so your body has time to understand what it took in, how to
Mm-hmm.
effectively process it, absorb it, move it to where it needs to
Mm-hmm.
be. So, yeah. So I would say not necessarily drastic changes to hydration, but just making sure you're adequately hydrated.
Okay, you said something that sparked my attention that I would like to bring up, and that is creatine and weight gain. So lots of athletes take creatine specifically in hopes of gaining weight, and then you have athletes that could probably benefit from taking creatine that maybe don't want to gain weight, and so it freaks them out, and they're like, "Can't take creatine because it could make me gain weight." What are your thoughts there in regards to, is it really making you gain weight, or is it that you're getting stronger in the weight room, which allows you to lift more weights, which allows you to put on more muscle? So indirectly, possibly, but maybe not directly.
Yeah, so both.
All.
Unfortunately, all of the above. Yeah, so like working with cyclists, or somebody where weight is
Hmm.
super, and
Yeah.
their center of gravity, all that stuff. So one of the things we talk about a lot as sports dietitians is functional mass, right?
Hmm.
So you gained 3 pounds, whether it's from carbohydrate loading and bringing those hydration
It
into the
does. Yeah.
muscle, or the creatine bringing some hydration into the muscle with it. That's good weight. It's a
Yeah.
functional weight. Your body's able to do, you're going to be able to create more force, do work a little bit longer with a well-fueled, well-hydrated muscle. So just understanding again, now, if this is race day and you're suddenly 2 kilos heavier, that's a whole different thing, right?
Yeah.
So it is kind of going into being realistic with your coaching and your training to know the difference
Yeah.
between functional weight and non-functional weight, especially if you're in a weight class sport. On the other hand, people who are looking, especially we hear a lot of the teen athletes are looking to just gain weight. Now, again, first you have to keep growing, so fuel that.
Right.
So eat and sleep. But second of all, yeah. So the way creatine would help you gain weight outside of that fluid shift is by doing more work, doing more damage, recovering from it harder. That's how
Yep.
muscle grows. Needing protein, muscles are made of protein. So yeah,
Yep.
creatine allows you to do more work, really, to really
Yep.
sum it down. So it's how you kind of weaponize that in your body and allow it to grow and create new muscle. That's how you would gain the body mass that becomes the functional weight that you need for your sport.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when athletes think of taking creatine and they want to gain muscle mass, gain weight per se, a lot of them don't realize that it's what you just threw in there really fast that I'm going to come back to and I want us to talk about for a second is eat and sleep, fuel and recover. And so let's talk a minute as to sports dietitians and what helping athletes, parents, coaches understand what does a day of eating look like for an athlete that could be taking or could not be taking creatine in order to fuel muscle growth and to fuel growth and development, but also muscle growth? Because we know we've seen athletes gain muscle without taking creatine before. And so obviously it can help. But let's talk about the diet or the eating plan that needs to be in place to optimize that creatine supplementation so that you're getting the best benefit from your training, your recovery, and your nutrition.
Yeah, so creatine in muscles at any age, like I said, it just allows you to do more energy. I'd
Right.
argue, for the parents out there, I'd argue creatine is probably more important 50 plus to
Yeah.
maintain muscle health, because you
Yeah.
start to have some muscle, weakening and whatnot that's just age related. Creatine, everyone's like, oh, my bench is going to go up. Yeah, you're also probably in like a level of strength training you've never done before. So it's not
Mhm.
always just the creatine, right? Now, creatine will allow you to take that,
Testosterone
right? Yeah, but it's also,
that
yeah,
you're
just
naturally producing. Yes.
yeah, but your training age, you're growing. So now your
Yeah.
frame can carry more, your set point
Yep.
changes. So all these things are going on. So it's never just one thing, right?
Hmm.
But when you're in that phase, when you are growing, again, creatine allows you to do a little bit more work. That's
Right.
really all it does, right?
Right.
So it all comes down to, am I fueling, giving my body the nutrients it needs to literally grow? And as I'm growing, to add the more muscle that's my frame is more comfortable handling, that my
Hmm.
strength coach has planned out for me, right? So it is just understanding just really how high those needs are. I mean, you hear all the stories of, the mom with four college football players, and it's like 7 gallons of milk a day or whatever, right? Like there's just
Hmm.
needs are just really, really high. And
Yeah.
anytime you're shorting yourself on the fuel you have in your hydration, your sleep, your recovery, you're just wasting that effort, really.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, for me, you've got the 4 hours of training. It's what you do the other 20. Everyone has those 4 hours of two-a-days in the summer or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even think you can do two-a-days anymore, but you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. All teams have the same amount of practices they can have.
Yeah.
That's all kind of regulated now. You win by out recovering the opponent, right? What you
Love
do
it.
on the field,
Yes.
everybody's got those same opportunities, right? You have an opportunity to kind of take those other 20 hours, and that's where it is. Am I getting the protein in? Do I have enough carbohydrates to fuel the energy? Did I
Yep.
replace my hydration and electrolytes?
Yep.
It's unfortunate. Well, fortunately for us, because it's science. Foundational is really, it's
Right.
not exciting, but like
Right.
your mom's right.
The
Like
day
eat
to
your
day.
veggies and drink your milk, and kind of,
Hmm.
you're not going to recover fully off a vending machine or a
Right.
convenience store. So
Right. I worked obviously at TCU for 10 and a half years and coached Jim Schlossnagle college baseball. And, we went to the College World Series multiple times, and he just has such this history of winning. And I'm like, if anyone knew anything about him, he's all about the day to day, the day to day. And what I like to call it's the compound effect. He and I were doing a podcast one time, and I mentioned the compound effect, and he pulls the book off off his shelf while we're talking. And the compound effect is small, seemingly insignificant things done over and over and over again add up to results. And so, parents, coaches, and athletes, from a sports dietitian perspective, that starts with your plate. And for athletes who want to gain mass, want to gain muscle, we're wanting them to eat multiple times a day. I would say probably no less than 6, because we want them eating every few hours. And that does start with breakfast, like breaking the fast. Athletes that want to gain weight or muscle. And I say, oh, what do you eat for breakfast? And they're like, oh, I don't eat breakfast. Or like, I eat a banana. And I'm like, okay, you don't actually want to gain weight. So starting with a breakfast of carbohydrate, protein, healthy fat. Joel talked about milk, fruit, all of the things, and then fueling consistently. My last podcast in between the one Joel and I did, I talked about the power of protein. So distributing protein over the course of the day so that you're giving your body what it needs. So thinking about that plate and making sure that it has carbohydrate, protein, and color, and then filling it in with snacks. Like I always joke with young athletes that I think snacks are like the glue that hold the sports nutrition puzzle together. And an athlete just can't get enough nutrition off breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like you've got to insert snacks pre-workout, post-workout, in the morning, between breakfast and lunch when you're at school, nighttime, especially if you have an afternoon workout. Man, getting a snack after dinner. And I think that the frequency of fueling has such an impact that athletes just don't they just take for granted. And especially in growth and development, when you are in that 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, I mean, that is when you are the most metabolically active you are probably like ever going to be. And so really fueling consistently, making sure that you're getting carbohydrate, protein every couple of hours, getting your hydration in, getting those antioxidant rich foods. So we joke at fruits and vegetables kind of being like so boring, but I'm like, this way I like to talk about fruits and vegetables, like vitamins and minerals. I like to liken them to the behind the scenes crew at a big sporting event. You really don't know they're there, but if they weren't, the whole scene would fall apart. Like nothing would work properly. And so trying to focus on those things that we want athletes to do every single day, while it might seem boring, that boring and that consistency is typically what leads to success. Then when you take things like creatine and you add this like little ingredient, magic ingredient on top of this like really stable staple plan, that is, I think, where athletes really start to see the difference and the results. Because Joel, it all boils down to how fast am I going to see results if I'm doing this? And so I'm going to ask you that question. How fast would I see results? I'm going to say it's based on what you're eating in your creatine supplementation, not just how much are you lifting in the weight room and your creatine supplementation.
Yeah, I think obviously if you're loading, you'll notice it a little bit faster than if you're not. But what you should see is just a little bit you're able to do, whether it's one extra rep or a couple extra pounds,
Mm-hmm.
or you're just like, wait, I got more. Like this used
Yeah.
to feel sad. So part of it means you're making the adaptations because you're doing everything right. But that's
Right.
kind of what you see it. You just have a little bit more energy to do the things that you need to do. And I kind of want to, I guess, kind of touch back on your compound kind of idea. It
Compound
goes the
effect.
other way too, right? So
Yes.
what we'll see is people get super motivated in the off season and they're doing everything
Mm-hmm.
right. And then they're like, oh, I'm going to slack on this. I'm going to slack on my eating. And those, as much as small positive wins track out,
Yep.
small negative, you have got the same exact. So every training, every game is an opportunity to get better, to fuel your body
Yep.
better, to recover from it. But when you don't, that's when you see teams halfway through the season, when you want to be peaking towards the playoffs, it's injuries, it's illness, it's all these things because you're
Yep.
chronically under recovering, right?
Yep.
I say it's not easy to overtrain. It's hard to overtrain. It's very easy to under recover, right? And
Yes.
that's where whether it's nutrition, your sleep, it has to be everything. It has to be the nutrition. It has
Yep.
to be the sleep. But yeah, so I think you'll start to see the cumulative effect of good habits pretty soon, and creatine being one of them
Right.
potentially. But once you start doing, oh, I'm doing this right, you're generally going to start doing a couple other things right, and
Yeah.
that's
They
when you're going
keep
to
them
start feeling
together.
like, oh God, like because
Yeah.
we work with a lot of athletes. Yeah, I've seen you play a game on awful nutrition. Just
Right.
because you can doesn't mean you should, and that's not going to show up over time, right? So
Right.
I would say for 20 years of human performance, 90% of what I do is on the foundational human, right? Like when I started my career, I
Mm-hmm.
chased that top 2%, like, okay, what's your creatine? What's your this, that? But if you're a 60% human and I got 2% on top of that,
Yeah.
you're still getting beat by the guy who's 80% of
Yep.
a foundational human. So understanding
Love it.
as kind of uh you may have tuned into this podcast thinking like, okay, cool, they're just going to tell me creatine's the best, it's going to solve everything. Fortunately, that's not the answer. It's a tool in doing everything right, and it's
Yeah.
consistent habits all the way around, fueling and recovery.
Yep, I love that. One of my favorite quotes that I've like ever heard was Ray Lewis. And, as he quote unquote aged in the NFL and was, I mean, just a little specimen of a human, of a linebacker. But, one of the things he said, I see all these young kids coming in, eating their fast food and doing whatever they're going to do. And he's like, the one thing I always tell them is, you won't ever be able to beat me because your fuel won't let you.
Amazing.
Isn't that great? I'm like, thank you, Ray
Yeah.
Lewis, for such a great, like, your fuel won't let you. And even though he was so much older, he was so diligent about nutrition and the recovery and the day to day. And those are the people that you see live in professional sports forever and ever and ever. They're the ones that do it all right. I mean, hello, you worked with Tom Brady for how many years? Like, he's one of those that does the day in, does the day out, and you survive longer. And one of the things I always tell young athletes is like, you can survive through a lot of things. You can survive through a lot of training sessions, survive through a lot of workouts. But if you want to thrive through a workout, you best be fueling it, hydrating, recovering after, and doing everything that you can do, because surviving doesn't really make you better. It's thriving that makes you run faster, jump higher, lift heavier. And you have to put in the work, and the work being in the weight room or on the field, course, wherever you are. But it's also in the kitchen, at the lunchroom, and the snacks. And that's where I think so many athletes, I just think that is often the missing link and can literally be the cheat code for a lot of athletes when it comes to performance.
Yeah, and we see how many athletes that we worked with, like, oh, I wish I knew you when I was younger, right? I wish I had these
Right.
habits early, right?
So many.
And
Yes.
and sport, it's kind of the inherent nature of sport to kind of normalize the suck. Like, you're like, oh, sport's supposed to hurt, or it's supposed to, but there's
Right.
certain things that don't have to be true. Like, you
Yeah.
shouldn't take protein and your stomach hurt, right? You shouldn't
Right.
wake up with like a knot in your calf. You shouldn't be groaning when you get up after practice, right?
Yeah.
These are all
Yeah.
things that's just signs of under recovery, right? But it's just
Right.
such a normal part of the, and I've got I forget which coach said, it was kind of great. He's like, fit doesn't mean fueled, or fit doesn't mean healthy, or something like that.
Yeah. It
Like
doesn't.
there's a lot
Yeah.
going on inside of you. Like, you're asking your body a lot. Like, I always call, like I said, I started my career in the ICU. I look at sports as intentional trauma. We're
It is.
doing damage to the body on purpose, right? So
Yeah.
of course we're going to need more nutrients if we're recovering from, a
Right.
car crash, right? So same amount of nutrients,
Yep.
like obviously different. And in this case, we know it's going to happen, so we can plan for it. So
Yep.
all
I
kind
have
of just big picture stuff to think about as you're deciding, is a supplement right for me?
I remember you saw when I first started working in the NFL with the Cowboys. I remember you saying that you were like, basically, we have a car crash every week. We have a few days to prepare for the car crash, a few days to recover from it, and then we just start preparing for it again. And that's true in a lot of sports. And so, to athletes out there, parents, coaches, I would encourage first, fuel and hydrate. Second, look at what supplements can benefit what you're already doing. What supplements can help give you an edge? And I think Joel and I will both agree that go back and watch our last podcast, or if you did not listen to it or watch it, you can watch it on YouTube as well. And if you did not, because if you are going to supplement, we want you to supplement safe. And I think it's worth saying again that if you choose to take creatine, we want you to be taking a third party tested creatine. Our gold standards are NSF, certified for sport, and then informed sport, which is a part of informed choice. Joel talked a lot about what that means and stuff in our last podcast, but worth mentioning again that you can look at nsfsport.com or the app NSF Sport. And then for informed sport, the website is WeTestYouTrust.com, and their app is Informed Sport. And you can look products, you can look up brands. And so no matter what age athlete you are, what level of sport you play, I don't care if you're the dad working out, on the weekends, or you're going into some draft, we want to make sure that you are supplementing with supplements that are not only we know have like they're they work, they're efficient and they work, but that they're safe. So do your due diligence in taking those third party supplements. And then in regards to all the other things that go with supplementing, re-listen to us today so that you can think through how you do that. And then I would say, if you really want to maximize your nutrition, working with a sports dietitian is what's going to help you individualize it the most and figure out what works best for your training schedule, your recovery, your eating, your food likes, dislikes, etc. My team at the Sports Nutrition Playbook, we have sports dietitians that specialize in helping young athletes with meal planning, with kind of just finagling it. I mean, like, nutrition's a lot of logistics when it comes to high school and college as well. And so learning, I think, how to finagle your nutrition into your day amidst school, training, weight room, icing, training room, all the things you have to do. So we would love to work with you. Joel, final thoughts on what an athlete should do, a young athlete should do if they're wanting to take creatine. What would be your top recommendation for them?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is finding a third party NSF
Yep.
certified for sports, so you know what you're putting in is is good. It's going to do what you say. It's going to be absorbed the best it can be. And just reiterating that more is not better. This isn't something
Yep.
you can take more of, right? So, I know we touched on a lot here. I know Amy and I could each do another 3 hours on this.
Yeah.
I will say for those who are kind of wanting more or think about this in a couple weeks, the International Society for Sports Nutrition has a really great paper
Mhm.
out called Common Questions and Misconceptions About Creatine Supplementation. So it dives into a little bit further some of the common things or what we've heard you may run across, like from
Yep.
coaches or parents or whoever, like, oh no, creatine is does this or does that. There's a lot of it's crazy. We're still debunking things from the 90s, but we are, right?
Yeah,
So
we are.
really great paper there, and it's written, kind of in approachable terms. It's a journal paper, but it's really just kind of a discussion, and it's wildly referenced. So just that's a great jump off to kind of either go back and
Yeah.
I want to read more about this or whatnot. Just a great resource there for sure.
We will put the link
Yeah,
in the show notes. I will have Joel send it to me. We'll put the link in the show notes
yeah,
so that you can access that, because the more you know, the better. I mean, what we're really advocating for is be informed, do what's individually best for you. And only you are going to like know that working with your sports performance team, sports medicine team, sports dietitian. But the more informed you are, the better choices you're usually going to make. So awesome. All right, Joel. So the podcast that you do with Thorn, tell us about that. So if they want to know all about supplements, they can go get another dose of Joel at.
yeah. So all my and one of many people credentialed at Thorn that write on our blog pretty daily. So
Mhm.
it's thorn.com, THORNE, and there's a kind of tab there. It's Take Five Daily is our blog. And then we've got the Thorn podcast is on, all platforms, and I host an occasional one on specifically performance. So just other ways to educate yourself and be
Yep.
the best informed you can be.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for your time. All of your insights. Truly, truly grateful.
Happy to be here.
All right. Thanks, Joel.